Hey, friend. So you have been trying to make some shifts this year. Maybe you set some resolutions and you're just feeling stuck. You don't feel like you're making progress, or you're just not sure what to do. And you've heard me say this before, but being stuck is a mindset, not a position. And this is where a coach comes in to support you. Because here's what I know to be true about you, friend. If you could have done it alone, you would have already done it, period. And as a life coach and a certified PDP professional, I specialize in using a research-based personality and performance survey called the ProScan to illuminate how your unique personality and natural strengths, your work and life environments are influencing real-time performance. So here's what you need to do. Go to the link in the show notes and book your free clarity call to learn more about how I can support you in your goals. I can't wait to illuminate your strengths, cultivate your confidence, and elevate your life. Hey, friends. This is Martine Williams, and I am obsessed with all things mompreneur life and helping you to remix your priorities, your habits, your mindsets, and yes, even your relationships, so that you can build a successful business without losing yourself in the process. I'm also obsessed with the color turquoise and lyrics of the 80s and 90s, but that's beside the point. Girlfriend, you don't have to hustle 24/7, 365 and continue to sacrifice your health, your relationships, and your sanity to be a successful mompreneur. As a small town girl living in a lonely world to a six-figure mompreneur, I am here to teach you how. There is a better way, and this podcast is your one-stop shop for all of the how-tos, the encouragement, the life hacks, the success tips, and of course, a little side of tough love. This is the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast, so let's do this. Happy Thursday, friends. I'm super excited about today's Turquoise Talk guest. Yes, another amazing guest is coming onto the show. Her name is Kimberly Spencer, and she is an award-winning high-performance trauma-informed coach and trainer, Amazon bestselling author, TEDx speaker, and the founder of CrownYourself.com, helping visionary leaders transform their self-limiting stories, build their empire, stand out fearlessly, and make the income and the impact that they desire. From her entrepreneurial beginnings at five years old, selling bags of glitter water to her neighbors, to becoming an award-winning screenwriter, certified Pilates instructor, Miss Congeniality, and six-time WEGO Health Activist Award nominee, Kimberly is proof that it's better to make your own mold than to conform to someone else's. Amen, sister. She's also the former executive of a national e-commerce startup and was the owner of the private Pilates studio Fitness with Kim in Los Angeles, California. Her work has been featured on Netflix, the CW, ESPN, Chicken Soup for the Soul, and NPR, and in Thrive Global, CNBC, and Forbes. That was a mouthful. So this was a really, really fun interview. I know you're going to love Kimberly, just her energy and her true love and supporting you and helping you to celebrate who you are as a unique individual and to accomplish all that you want to accomplish. So I'm super excited for you to hear her. So without further ado, let's get this episode started. Well, welcome back, friends, to the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. I'm your host, Martine Williams, your CEO, your Chief Encouragement Officer, and I'm super excited about another Turquoise Talk guest coming on the show today to share with you entrepreneur life and the inspirations that we can, glean from other people is why I love bringing guests on the show, the things they've done really well, maybe some lessons they've learned along their journey. So thank you so much, Kimberly, for being on the show with us today.
Absolutely, Martine. I'm excited to be here with you.
It's awesome. Yes. I love meeting new people. I mean, it's just so inspiring to meet new people and like people that I would have never met any other way, but through podcasts and, things like that and social media. It's just an amazing opportunity. So tell us a little bit about you as far as why you're an entrepreneur, how you became an entrepreneur, what you're up to right now.
So I've been an entrepreneur since I was like 5. But I think it just comes from being raised by two entrepreneurs. I'm like, my mom was pushing me in the stroller as she was passing out flyers for their tree business. And I watched my parents grow a business from nothing to multi-millions of dollars within the span of 30 years, while my dad was also an addict simultaneously.
Right.
So I experienced the benefit of growing up with two entrepreneur parents, because I have only since I started my coaching business realized how beneficial that actually was, because there is a mindset that is ingrained in me that's very different than when you're raised with two parents that are very into traditional employment.
Right.
So that was one piece. But I've always been a high achieving hustler. Straight out of high school, I knew I wanted to be in the entertainment industry initially. Went out, started getting jobs in production, was able to network my way to get my first feature film produced and distributed. And from there, I thought that this dream that I had of working in Hollywood, which really was the only place that I saw anyone, because I didn't know much about the world of entrepreneurship, but Hollywood was where I saw the big superstars making millions of dollars and making the impact that I wanted to make. So it was the only model of reference growing up in LA for me. And then from that experience of having my first film produced and distributed and being at the premiere, I realized I was only about 90% fulfilled. And I was like, okay, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Simultaneously, to subsidize, in essence, my career in Hollywood, I got started as a Pilates instructor, and I was freelancing. And that was my first business at 19 years old, was as a Pilates instructor. And within a year, I had managed to become the highest paid, most fully booked, most requested instructor at the studio that I was working at. And unfortunately, success is a crappy teacher. So I didn't really look at that, at like what actually did I do that made it successful, until later on, as I was building my coaching business. Because of my Pilates background, after my film was produced, I had the opportunity to come on as a consultant for an e-commerce startup. So I thought, well, maybe that's where it's at. Maybe that's where my passion lies, is really in building a business. So I jumped on as a consultant. I saw the product because of my fitness background. It was a back stretching chair. And I was like, I don't want to just be a consultant. I want to be a partner. And so I became president of that startup, took it to market, got to pitch to the first round of Shark Tank auditions, and learned through that experience that if you are not clear as a business owner with your business partner on what your mutual values are, on how you make decisions, I learned some very hard lessons for 2 years. My business partner ended up, after the span of 2 years, he wanted to buy me out. I was devastated, crushed, thought I was failed. We signed the buyout agreement 3 weeks before I got married, walked down the aisle to marry my husband, went off on our honeymoon in Italy. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do next. I was like, Pilates, I had a small private studio. That wasn't fully fulfilling me. I loved e-commerce. I loved business. I loved entrepreneurship, but I didn't love the experience of working with a partner. I loved, writing and transforming stories and writing movies, but I didn't love the Hollywood industry. And so I was really curious. It's like, how do I combine all these passions?
Right.
And that's how I built my coaching business. After way too many Italian espressos, I leaped off the couch and I said, "Crown yourself." And my husband's like, "What's that?" And I said, "I don't know, but that's the name of my company." And it took 1.5 years for me to actually make money in my business, because I spent that first 1.5 years riddled with doubt and shame from the buyout experience. It was the first time I ever experienced doubt or fear or any lack of courage, actually, with going for anything business-wise. I was so scared of getting rejected. I didn't make any money. And then I found out I was pregnant. And I was like, this is going to stop.
This cycle has got to stop.
And I knew I had a 9-month deadline. So that was when I actually had the opportunity to reflect and look at, like, well, I've been successful in business before. What made me successful as a Pilates instructor and with my Pilates business? And so I started looking at all of the pieces of the process, my methodology, my approach, my energy, my mindset. And once I started to break that down, I realized that I had the formula for success all along inside of me. I just was grasping at all these external factors to try to give me validation or do something that I thought that I needed to be or should be doing in order to achieve something that I wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
And that was like my son he kicked it off for me. And within a few months, I was booking clients. I quit my side job teaching Pilates and have scaled up from there and was able to support my family for 2 years living in Australia, living our literal dream during the pandemic when everyone was stuck. We were stuck on an island with the beach as our backyard. So
horrible place to be stuck. So how old is your son now?
I have a 5-year-old, and then I have an 18-month-old who I had in Australia.
Okay. Awesome. And your husband, what does he do?
He's a voice actor.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. So I have so many questions like about Shark Tank, but we won't go there initially. I won't go full into that, but I would like to know, what was the business lesson you had from going through that process? Because I'm a big Shark Tank fan. I used to watch it every Friday night, and I haven't watched it in a while, but what did you learn just through that process as an entrepreneur?
So I only made it through the first round of auditions. There's a lot of people that auditioned for that show.
Yeah.
That being said, what I learned was that I went to that audition solo. Not my business partner didn't come with me.
Okay.
And when you're not standing, just like in a marriage, when you're not standing as a united front,
right? Yeah.
What it is that you're creating, it really has an impact, because the casting director for the show, he knew our product. He literally lived down the street from our office.
Right.
And he's like, "Oh, I know that product. Like, I've seen it." So I thought for sure we were a shoo-in, and like at least to get to the next round. Yeah. And yet my business partner was not there. And I was the one who was going down and pitching and to doing these bigger audacious moves, because that's how I make decisions. Yeah. And when I make a decision, I'm like, let's go for it. Let's fully go in. He made decisions differently. And so my biggest lesson was A, standing as a united front, and B, really understand, like, I didn't know my numbers as well as I should have, quite frankly. Like, he knew the numbers better. He was the back end guy, but because I didn't have him, it wasn't that united front.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really interesting. And you brought up earlier just, the lack of confidence when you've had a business venture that didn't go the way you wanted it to go. And I know there's someone listening that has felt that way. I know I have felt that way. I mean, failure is a part of the process. We just can't take it personal. We just got to realize that just didn't work. So let's try something different. But for those that are listening, like, how did you work through that to get back into that confidence of promoting this new business? And I know you had the catalyst of, I've got a baby on the way. So that kind of put some fuel to the fire there, but you still, I think even now you're probably still battle a little bit of self-sabotage and imposter syndrome. So what would you say to someone who's feeling that, like, for real right now?
It's human. Second of all, there's a fantastic book called The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiest, who I highly recommend if you're dealing with any form of self-sabotage, fear of success, fear, like imposter syndrome, whatnot. What really switched for me when I was in that 1.5 years of making no money in my business, suddenly when I found out I was pregnant, that was like, not that it wasn't a shock because we were kind of planning on it. I just didn't think it would happen that fast, quite frankly. I was like, oh, I thought because I'd had a history in years ago when I was in my late teens and 20s with bulimia. I thought, I'd struggled with body stuff and hormone shifts. And I was like, there's no way that it's going to happen that fast for me. Right. Oh, it did. I thought this was going to be like a long process. So I was surprised that it happened so quickly. And then what I realized in that moment was the commitment that I had made when I was about 18 or 19 years old. When I had freshly moved out of my parents' house, which was at that time a very toxic environment. My dad was battling opioid addiction, alcoholism, you name it. And it was really hard. And I had just moved out, and I knew that I was in the throes of bulimia. And I was struggling, but I was happy at the same time because I had just found Pilates, and I was finding that was actually really beneficial for my mental health. And I would just started teaching, and I was in now a leadership position, and I had changed my environment. I'd moved out. And I remember making a promise to myself. And I said, I will not have a child until I figure this out. This world doesn't need another effed up child, quite frankly. And I said, I made that commitment. And when I realized I was pregnant, fast forward a decade later, when I realized I was pregnant, I remembered that commitment. And I looked at the reflection of how I had been acting, how I had been being for the past year and a half. I'd been blaming my former business partner for my hardships. I was complaining constantly about finances, about my life, about my business not moving, about how slow things were taking, like about the world, about the government, about everything. I was complaining. It was quite negative. And I was in such a victim space. And I was like, oh, this is a very familiar space, because that was the same space I was in with my body a decade ago. So I was just in a space of what I considered like business bulimia or financial bulimia, where I would receive money from my job and then suddenly would go out all to bills. And from that space, from recognizing that, I recognized that it was a mindset pattern that I'd fully recovered from with no psychological or medical intervention before with bulimia. I knew I could do it again with my money and my business. Second, I realized that the role of mom, the title of mom, was far more important to me than CEO. And that role, that identity required me to become more than who I had operated as. And that it was that identity shift that really shifted the game for me, where I no longer was available to be an imposter. I had to get shit done, quite frankly, for my son, because I had to shift this, because I knew that the person that I was being, the complaining, blamey victim, was not the woman I wanted to raise a child. Like I didn't want that version of me being the mother to my child. And I wanted my son to grow up seeing a strong woman, a courageous woman, a woman that he could admire, and that who went after her dreams. Because, as you know, as a mom, like, kids listen far more to what you do than to what you say you're going to do.
Exactly. It's caught, not taught. That's for sure.
Yeah. Caught, not taught. That 100%. I love that. I've never heard that before. That's breath. I love that.
It's true. That's why you have to, there's always, and that's really anyone that you're leading in a position of leadership. So whether it's your team, your business, your people that work for you or with you on your team, or your children or whatever, it's definitely caught, not taught, because they're watching what you're doing. When you're in a position of leadership, people are always watching what you're doing. So thank you for sharing all of that. So tell us a little bit about, like, who do you coach?
I work with leaders, founders, visionary entrepreneurs, creatives in directorial positions, anyone who is really focusing on building, who's struggling with what I see they're struggling with is typically a brand identity, where their outer selves of how they're being perceived as a leader is not matching how they're leading. And so they're struggling with some subconscious blocks, self-limiting beliefs, and a disconnect with how they are perceiving themselves and how they are being perceived by those that they lead. Awesome.
Well, I know with littles at home, moms are always thinking, like, how does she do it all? That's a question I get all the time. Like, how do you do it all? And I'm always like, the number one thing is, like, I don't do it all. I've gotten really good at delegating, but what does a typical day look like for you with, harmonizing mom life with your work life?
I love that you used the word harmonize, because I don't believe in balance. Balance is complete BS.
Yeah.
And that being said, like, you don't really want balance when it comes to your profit. Like, you don't want to take away some of your profits so you can balance and have more time to spend at your kids' soccer games. Like, you want.
Right.
And so in that space, like, a typical day, the past, I would say, quarter has not been a typical day. So for me, because we've been moving, we just moved to Texas, we moved states. And so everything is off its pattern. And I think that that's something that we as entrepreneurs also need to allow for, is for that pattern interrupt to then really be able to reassess what patterns are working and what are not. And so for me, I'm blessed to have a very supportive husband and a very supportive mom, and we all live together, and it is fantastic having that backup support, especially with my little 18-month-old who is a climber.
It's helpful to have extra eyes, right?
Extra eyes, extra hands. I do think that 6 pair of adult hands to 4 little children, it really works well. So having that multi-generational household really is so beneficial for my kids and for being able to have me the support that I need to have. When we were in Australia, my husband, after I had my second child, he was predominantly stay-at-home dad.
Yeah.
And it was, as we joked, like I brought home the bacon and he fried it up because I don't cook.
I don't cook either. I don't cook either.
I mean, I forget to turn off the stove. It's really not a
good idea. Not safe for anybody if you're in the kitchen. Is that what you're saying?
My 5-year-old was like, stop burning toast. And I was like, I'm going to delegate that fully to your father. So that's like the cooking is delegated. Right now I'm shopping around for a housekeeper, or someone else to also watch the kids part-time. But I do believe in delegation so that I can have my time. Mm-hmm. I have my 4 principles that I have to be set up for success. I have to get a daily meditation in. I practice transcendental meditation. That is a requirement for me. That is a necessity for my mental health, as well as exercise. I either do Pilates or I do long distance running. Mm-hmm. And then my diet has to be on point to maintain and manage my energy. Diet is not really a word that I use. I use it in the traditional, as in like just lifestyle. Mm-hmm. But I eat very clean. I don't pollute my body with junk. I'm very bougie about what I put in my body just because I know how it manages my energy. My key thing that I focus on as the queen of my family is to manage my energy and being in the business of energy management, because if you can manage that, it's a game changer. Like this morning, we had a pretty rough night with the freeze that's currently happening in Texas. Yes. And my little one still sleeps with me. And so my other one was struggling with an ear infection. So my husband was sleeping up with him. And so he was kicking me all night, waking up, all the things. And I woke up this morning and I said I didn't get my workout in. And I told my husband, I said, I feel like I need to resource myself. And he said, whatever you need. So I went in, did a meditation. I knew I could reset. I knew I could do the things that made my body feel good, because I knew that I had to manage my energy before I expelled it anywhere. And I think that's the biggest thing that you can learn as a mompreneur is, where are you overexpending and overextending your energy? Where do you just need to claim and command? Like, this is what I need right now in order to be of service to anybody. And when you can command that, and when you fortunately, I'm blessed with a husband who also respects that, right? And vice versa. Like when he's like, I need a meditation, I'm like, okay, great. You go ahead and take that, and we make sure that we have that balance and reciprocity. Because that level of communication, of being very clear on knowing what are those resources, what are those tools for you that really allow you to come back to that centered place where you can make stronger, better, faster, more aligned decisions for you, for your business, for your family, for your household.
I love that. I think it's important for those that are listening to really take that to heart and really think about, because your 4 are probably different from my 4. I mean, we have a couple overlaps, but it's not about copying exactly what Kimberly is saying, but, find what are your 4 things that you need to refuel your body, to refuel your energy, and knowing what your individual capacity is. One of the things I get to do with my one-on-one clients is through the Pro Scan actually shows them how big their energy tank is. And I think a lot of times we compare, like, well, I see Martine and she's doing all these things. Well, I have a very large energy tank. Like my tank is huge. Well, yours may be like very, a little bit smaller. So you're not going to be able to do as much as me. And it's going to require you to take more breaks, throughout the day or throughout the month or throughout the week. But I would really challenge everybody who's listening. I think this is super important for you because you heard me say this before on the show, that your business, your parenting, your marriage is only as good as you are and is only as healthy as you are. And so if you're not figuring it out, this is what I hear a lot of women say, like, I don't know what fills my cup. I don't know what I would do if I had an extra 15 minutes in the day just to focus on me. They've been so focused on outpouring into others that they don't even know what they would do with that time. And so take the time to figure it out. I mean, it's so important, and it's such a mindset shift, like you said, and it's against culture, because culture's like, just keep chasing that ball until you just crash and burn. And that's what's happening. And that's really why this show is about, helping women to burnout proof their life, and just, there's a better way, and you can be successful. Like, we were believing a lie that we have to hustle 24/7, 365 to be that great mom, wife, and business owner. And it just doesn't have to be that way.
No. And I love the fact that you said about really looking at what are your energy resources, and get curious. Like, if you don't know, because for the longest time, because I was so dissociated from my body when I was younger because of various traumas that I experienced as a child, I didn't know what felt good in my body because my nervous system actually hadn't regulated to go off of the sympathetic. Like, I didn't know how to activate my parasympathetic nervous system to allow for that deregulation and build up that physiological level of resiliency in my body. Fortunately, that one of the reasons as to why I do Pilates on a regular basis, why I still do it, is because Pilates, yoga, and Qigong are 3 forms of exercise that build strength, but they also correlate to they also train your parasympathetic nervous system, because you're moving with an exhale that's longer than your inhale, which starts to retrain and recalibrate your biological nervous system, which, if you've been in go mode and constantly in like that fight, flight, I got to serve, I got to outpour always, which sometimes can be a trauma response. If you're in that space, then that causes your nervous system hasn't had a break. And that's why we crash. That's why we burn out. And so if you can practice how to create that ebb and flow of resiliency in your body. My practice, I say I work both from the top down and the bottom up, because I work somatically with trauma and the physiology, because the body is your domain of your subconscious mind. And so a lot of times your body will know before your brain does, when you're like, I don't feel really good doing this. So I always like to ask, a great question to ask yourself, if you don't know what makes you feel good, after you do something, whether it's, having a glass of wine at night, or whether it's, watching a TV show, or whether it's a yoga class, or whether it's a meditation, after you do it, ask the question, like, how do I feel? Like, really just do a physiological energy check, no judgment, but check in, like, what's it feeling like? Am I feeling depleted? Am I feeling drained? Am I feeling a little more tired? Or am I feeling enlivened? Am I feeling excited? Am I feeling like that was a challenge, but it's one that I'd like to go back for? So just allow for yourself to have that curiosity and exploration, because there's no right one best answer. There's only what's best for you. And you know it when you feel it physiologically.
So this week, or last weekend, I went and watched my son's girlfriend's dance competition, and I love to dance. And so I was watching it, and the last performance was hip hop. And I've been threatening to go back to an adult hip hop class, and which I've done years ago, but I just kind of got out of the habit of it and filled up my time with other stuff. And so anyway, I posted on social, like, I really need an adult hip hop class, like, ASAP. And the guy that's been my instructor before saw it, and I'm like, I know he's going to call me out. And he's like, so then why aren't you coming to class? So I went this past Monday with a friend, and we had a ball. And it is one of those things where, I can just show up and be Martine. I'm not the wife, the mom, the entrepreneur. I'm not trying to sell anybody anything. I'm just trying to, like, do something that's just fun for me. And I think that's something that women have lost the importance for, is just doing something that is for fun. Doesn't have to have a productive end all the time. Like, what fills you up, what brings energy, what brings fun to your life. And so it could be Pilates. I do love Pilates, and I do work out, but I'm excited to bring hip hop back into my life.
I love that.
And my back is like, what's happening? Why did you do that? Because of course, the night I show up, it's like the hardest routine that they've had in like a couple of months. And it was good for my brain. Like, I was having to think and remember. And so I'm excited to see where it takes me. But anyway, I appreciate what you said about just figuring out what it's like for you. And I know someone may be thinking, well, how long should I test this? Like how long should I be trying different things and writing down how I feel? Is there a timeline, or is it just they'll know when they know?
You'll know. I mean, you'll know what, sir. I think that one of the beliefs that our society has is like, once you have a habit, you have to stick with that for the rest of your life.
True. Yeah.
And forgetting that we are as women specifically, we are cyclical beings. And so there will be times and place that certain forms of higher intensity activity may feel really, really good. And there are times and place where you're like, I just want to slow down and maybe like do a slow, sweet pole dance. Like, but it's allowing yourself the permission to explore and to play and to test and to see what really works for you. And so I don't like, because like for me, when I first started exploring, the first thing I started with was pole dancing. And that I found felt so good in my body. I loved it, and it served for a while. But then I stopped doing it because I didn't really feel the need to have that as a consistent thing. I found Pilates and preferred that, and that stuck with me for a longer time. But now that we have our house now, I'm like, I still got my pole, and my husband's very excited to put it up in the garage.
That's hilarious. It's good for the marriage too, right?
Good for the marriage too. Exactly. But
he probably has that pole up every day.
He's so trying to currently figure out how to do an 8-foot pole on a 12-foot ceiling.
Oh my goodness. So funny. That's so funny. So what would you say helps you to stay motivated as a mompreneur on the days when you have sick kids, or, you're just not feeling like coming to your desk and doing the things? Is there one or two things that really help you bring back that motivation?
Music.
Or stay motivated?
Yeah, music is a huge piece. Like I have a playlist that I know that when I'm putting on my makeup in the morning, because that is one of the habits that I cultivated that is stuck since having my first son, after spending 6 weeks in Depends and a nursing bra and no makeup and barely a shower.
Those are the kids we understand.
Like I realized I asked myself I journaled out everything that I wanted for my life and for my family. And I broke it down to like, what are the 3 daily habits? And the one was my future self. She showers daily. She puts on makeup, and it's not a lot, but it is, I call it my warrior paint, because it really does like set the tone. It sets me up feeling good, feeling confident. And I do it to music to where I can move my body. I can feel, because I was a dancer as well. And I still love to dance, and definitely do all forms of dance, especially with my 2 boys. Cause I like my 5-year-old is like freaking Billy Elliot. So
that's hilarious.
But it's that experience of, the music comes on, and it's that is what drives me. I'm highly auditory, sensory.
Yeah.
That wasn't a sentence, but
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean?
I'm picking up what you put down.
Yeah. So that's using music as a catalyst to be able to drive the day. And if I'm not feeling good or 100% motivated, I know I got that playlist in my back pocket. I just hit play. I start to feel it. And it's also the playlist that I've run many marathons to. So it's already been physiologically ingrained, certain songs of accomplishment.
Right. I love music too. I have a reboot playlist that I have that if I'm feeling like I need a reboot, or I need something, like I just put it on, and it does. Music changes the environment. For those of you that are not music lovers, just try it. Just try it. I think you might be surprised. So I do like to ask each guest, we talked about burnout a little bit ago, but if you've experienced burnout before, what did it feel like for you? Like, were you overwhelmed? Were you stressed? Were you not sleeping? Because I do think it can present in different symptoms. And then how did you kind of work your way out of it? And how do you prevent it now? That's like a 3-part question. Sorry.
Going through this move, I can definitely say burnout was quite close. Just with the stress of preparing a house for sale in California, because people are weird out there, like for as far as like how to prepare a house. Like, everything has to be painted and staged and all that. and then the move and everything. So having that on my plate, it was very key. I could feel my energy depleting, and I could literally, like, I always tune into my body. And when I heard my body say, like, you're spent, like, you're spent, like, going over anymore is going to overspend your energy.
Right.
And I don't like going over budget.
Right.
So learn from past mistakes.
Yeah.
So I realized, like, okay, this just means I need to refocus my energy. What do I need to be focusing on? Do I need to have more fun? Do I need to have more play? Do I need to have more laughter? So I was very intentional with, like, how can I refill my cup as much as possible? And I said, the big pivot for me was I needed to pivot back into work. Because I wasn't burnt out from work. I was burnt out from all of these other pieces personally with moving. And I actually needed to pivot back into creating. And that was my pivot. But in the past, when I've had burnout, it has always been less from creative. It's more because I haven't been spending that time in my zone of genius.
Yeah.
And when you're spending that time in your zone of genius, it's a renewable, infinite well. And when you are not spending time in your zone of genius, that's a clear sign that you're headed to burnout. So if I'm spending too much time on, like, strategizing or building processes, which are a part of being a CEO, yes. And it's my zone of excellence, but it's not my zone of genius. Like, creation is my zone. And so when I get back to that creating, to writing, to just dropping in and feeling what words flow through me, that's how I turn back from burnout.
Yeah. That's such a good point. And it's so true. And I think, I saw a quote years ago that said that, a lot of people are crashing and burning, not because they're working too much, but they're doing too little of what lights them up. Too little of the things, like you said, being in your zone of genius. I mean, when you have to stretch outside of your natural core of strengths, I'm with you. Like, strategy is not my favorite thing to do. It's definitely not my strength, but it's part of being a CEO. So I have to know that, okay, if I have a strategy day where that's going to require a lot of those things that are not my natural skill set or strengths, then I need to prepare to have some downtime afterwards, because it's going to completely drain me to work in that, because it's not my zone of genius. And so I think people just really need to sit back and think about what is that? Do you even know what your zone of genius is? Do you know what your strengths are? And are you playing in them enough times or enough amount of time throughout the day and the week and the month to keep that energy tank full?
Yeah. And if you can, like, find a way to build the systems around you to support yourself to be in that zone of genius.
Yeah.
Like, and your zone of genius as a CEO may be different than your zone of genius as a parent.
Right.
Like, my zone of excellence, I would say, is discipline as a parent, but my zone of genius is really the form of play, which is, like, kinesthetic. So it's very, chasing my kids and, like, running around with them. And, like, that is just, it's an energy generator for me. And of course, the discipline, it does come with the territory of parenting, just like strategy comes with the territory of being a CEO.
Right.
But know where, like, how do you like to play best as a parent? And how do you like to play best in your business? Because both are keys to your zone of genius as to what you do that just lights you up, that you could do for free all day, every day.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So as we wrap up, is if you had the opportunity to talk to, all the mompreneurs of the world, which you have an opportunity right now to talk to a bunch of them via the podcast, what's one or two things you would want to make sure they understood or that they knew?
Take ownership of where you're at, because you can't move from any place that you're not currently accepting and owning that you're there. And once you own that you're there, meaning you accept, it doesn't mean you have to like it. It doesn't mean you have to stay there.
Right.
But you got to own that certain causes, certain actions that you have taken or chosen not to take have led to you being at this certain space, wherever it is, positive or negative. And look at, A, own your successes all the time, and B, own, like, what are the actions that have set you up to this place where maybe you're not getting the results that you want.
Right.
Because once you own it, then you can actually move forward in the race. But if you're thinking of what you should be doing or what you would have done or what you could have done, those places lead you into just making decisions from guilt and shame, but they don't actually move you forward into actual forward action. So when you can own where you're at, own what has led you to being at that space, to accept it, and then doesn't mean you have to like it, like I said, move forward. That's how you first move forward and make decisions faster. And so a big thing that I see with so many entrepreneurs is they struggle with decision making. And like my TED talk was on decision making, on really what it means to decide for possibility. And when you can know how to make a fully embodied, full heck yeah, this is happening decision. And when you do that decision, like most people don't make a decision because they're scared of making the wrong decision. So they avoid making a decision entirely, which ultimately means that some form of decision is made for them, which puts them at effect, which depletes their power.
Right.
Versus you choosing to make a decision. And I have a belief, which feel free to adopt. I don't approach this belief from a place of ego, but it does sound a little egoic once you hear it. It's that I always make the right decision. Even if I made the wrong decision, even if I delayed, and even if I avoided, even if I made a mistake, I have always made the right decision, because every decision I've ever made has allowed me to learn something, grow, or advance.
Right.
So when you operate from that belief system, it changes your speed at which you make decisions, which changes your speed of implementation, which changes the speed in which you achieve your goals.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I would agree. There's a lot of decision fatigued entrepreneurs out there, and indecision is a decision. You're deciding to sit and not do anything instead of making a decision and then doing the work to make it the right decision. So I love that you touched on that. So your TED Talk, it's on YouTube, correct? We'll put a link in the show notes for that. And we'll put a link in the show notes for how you can connect with Kimberly. And the book you talked about was The Mountain Is You. Is there any other favorite book that you would recommend?
Oh yeah. The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership.
Okay.
By Dethmer and Diana Chapman. That is one of my favorites. It was recommended to me by my mentor, who scaled her business from 0 to 30 million in 3 years. And I said, whatever books you read, I want to read them.
Why reinvent the wheel? Let me just give me all the goods and I'll just follow.
Let me just model. So she said that one, and then Traction. And I would add to Traction by Gino Wickman for really being able to set up your business. And I've also applied the principles of Traction into my family as well. Every morning we have a family team meeting where we go through the same process of focusing on gratitude. We highlight what the big things are today, where we each need support. And that's a huge piece. We only started implementing that a few weeks ago because of all the chaos with the move. And I was like, I need structure. Yeah. But it's been working so far. I've liked it. So we've been testing it, and it's gone really well. And my son really loves participating. My 5-year-old loves participating in it. My 1-year-old screams occasionally.
Yeah, that's all right. That's
it is what it is.
Yeah. I've got Traction in my audio library right now. Actually, I'm listening to The Gap and the Gain right now. Have you read that?
I haven't. I've heard a lot about that book recently.
I mean, I'm only one chapter in, but they interview I guess it's co-authored, and he interviews the doctor behind it. And it's pretty fascinating. You'll love it. And he brought a lot of the same principles into the family too. So you'll have to add that one to your list. But
I will definitely.
Do you have a favorite resource that you use as a business owner that you cannot live without for your business? If someone's listening, like an app or any type of service that you use that you love that makes your business streamlined?
I mean, for me, it's Kajabi.
I love Kajabi too. Yes.
Yeah. That is my streamlined go-to, all-in-one, everything. And when I first started my business, I had a whole bunch of different systems. And this past quarter, as well as moving, we've also been moving everything over to Kajabi because we were using another CRM. Yeah. And I honestly didn't need that much functionality and data.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quite frankly, I was it was almost data overload, where I was like, maybe if we had, 500 employees, I would want that much data as a CEO, but not so. I don't think it was really necessary. So we've been pivoting everything over to Kajabi, and I have been so grateful for that decision. I love the all-in-one features of that platform, and the support has been great.
Oh, their customer service is amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. I mean, if I ever have a question, they're right there, and they keep adding to it, which is what I love. Like, I'm sure you've seen like the whole coaching section in there now and the podcast section in there now. I love it. So yeah, hands down, Kajabi. If you don't want to have lots of different things, it's a one-stop shop for all your business needs is what I feel like. So very cool.
Very, very simple.
Very, very simple. Yes.
And it
especially if you don't have a team yet, if you don't have a virtual assistant, you don't have someone who's, funnel expert and all that, it's all right there. And it's pretty simple to follow. And they have all kinds of workshops to help you with it too. Because I'm not a tech person. I mean, I've had to learn to be
same here.
A tech person, but I'm like, can I just hand that off and just let me help the people? That's what I want to do. I just want to serve the people, talk to the people, nurture the people, teach and train and coach, and someone else can handle all the tech stuff. So Kajabi is kind of like that. It's kind of an easy plug and play platform. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. And it also is very economical from a profit first standpoint. Yeah. I had all those different systems. I read Mike Malkowitz's Profit First, brilliant book, one of my top that I recommend for finances for entrepreneurs. It's what allowed us to increase our profit 300% in 2020. Yeah. That from when I looked at all our systems, I was like, oh my gosh, like just the expenses of what we were spending. It was tech overload. Yeah. And so we just simplified and I was all in one monthly payment. Great.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, we'll put the links to all of those things in the show notes for y'all, so you can go and check some of those things out. The Profit First is a great book. I actually follow him on Instagram too. Yeah. So we'll put that in the link for you. But thank you so much, Kimberly, for coming on the show. This was awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you, Martine, for inviting me and having me on and allowing me to speak to your audience. It has been a pleasure, and I look forward to connecting with them in the future.
Yeah, we'll put all the places for y'all to connect with her and anything she may be offering right now in the show notes. And I will catch everyone on the next episode. Well, that's a wrap, friends, for this week's episode of the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. Thank you so much for listening and for following the show. It means so much to me. And listen, friend, sharing is caring. So if you loved this episode and thought of some fellow mompreneurs who could benefit, send them the link, share this episode, or take a screenshot and head on over to Instagram and share and tag me at Martine31Williams. We are connected on Instagram, right? It's where you will get all the fun behind the scenes of my life and business as a mompreneur. Until next time, know that I am believing in you always.